The Kia Rio is a premium hatchback that is now in its 4th generation. A popular model for Kia in Europe, it is also sold in a sedan body style alongside the hatch in the US. And the car you see is indeed brand new, having just made its global debut earlier this year. Alright, let me set the context of this for you. Now, the Kia Rio is in its new generation that arrived just late last year. So it's brand new on the global stage, and it's a car that's been really popular for Kia in many markets, and that is what it shares its platform with. Yes, the i20 and the Rio are similar cars in terms of platform and powertrain, but in terms of styling, you can see it. I mean, of course, this is the new facelifted i20, and this is the all-new generation of the Kia, like I said. They couldn't be more different. This is not an India spec, that is, and so of course this car sits a little bit lower to the ground. Ignore that aspect, but take a look at them in terms of attribute. You start to understand what the Rio is then all about. Like the Rio, the Hyundai i20 too is very European and offers great looks, space, good ride and overall drivability, and decent value. It also just received its mid-cycle facelift, which India got first at the Auto Expo in February. And yes, I know the Baleno outsells the i20, but it's the i20 that I still think is the segment benchmark car for us in India. The Rio can also be all of that, and if positioned right, has the goods to threaten the i20's status. And it's not just because of its sexy-looking face and overall stance. Now, the primary reason why Kia has seen just so much strength over the last few years globally is on the back of really sexy design. Its cars have gotten so much more attractive, and you have Peter Schreier to thank for that. This car also designed by Peter Schreier, and the signature is in that front grille. Now, this part has become the family look of all Kias. We showed it to you before, even at the Auto Expo, all the cars had it, and it makes the car look just a little more ready for action. Of course, remember, I've been saying this throughout, this is not an India spec car, it is the global spec, which is why it sits a lot lower, nice big wheels as well, and if this was to be launched in India, well, you better believe it, that part of the story will certainly change, because the suspension will be tuned differently for India. It will probably be raised, which is a pity really, because the car looks really sexy hunkered down like that. In terms of proportion and size, nothing special, because of course that's what you need to do in the hatchback space. But again, come around to the back and you start to get a little sense of that flamboyance in the tail light, where the LED treatment, it's simplistic and yet very sharp, very modern indeed, and can't go wrong with this wonderful red color, can you? So the Rio is a looker, but its overall proportions and profile are a bit predictable. It also does not have the muscle of the i20. Having said that, we are not doing a comparison review here. Where the Kia could score were it to come to India is on the interior, which is certainly fresh for the segment. Now remember, today this is not a review, because I can't talk about this in the context of something coming to the market. But having said that, I think what I can talk about is just the overall change that might come in if something like this was to arrive in our market. Now by this, what I mean is that in that mass car space, you get a little lift up in terms of quality of plastics and also the molding around them. It's a really smartly done dash. I remember the first time I saw this car at one of the motor shows late last year when it made its global debut. The new generation, I think, just brings this sense of quality with it. So the interior design, just as attractive as the exterior. Of course, the 4 leather seats, the nice all-black sporty treatment does tend to look pretty cool. It has a sunroof as well, for what it's worth. And, you know, I'm telling you that if a car like this was to come to us, of course, make no mistake, the small touch screen would be replaced by a big one, and you'd get Apple CarPlay, and you'd get Android Auto, and possibly navigation. This car right now doesn't have all that, but again, this is not about market spec right now. It's just about showing you what's possible, and with the Rio, I think a fair amount is. So the cabin is sexy and young and very different indeed. Nice. And that's where the i20's cabin, that's been recently refreshed and I have to say much better loaded in this top spec that I have today, would still seem a little predictable. But the i20's cabin does come across as roomier, which could be a slight weakness for any proposed entry to this segment by the Rio. Alright, all of this is fine, but I know what you're asking. How does it drive? After all, sharing a platform for the i20 would mean that performance would be familiar, right? Now globally, the Rio comes in several engines. There's the 1.2, 1.4 and 1.6 petrol. You've also got the diesel, of course, but that 1.2, the Kappa, that's the familiar engine for us because we know it from several Hyundai models. I mean, the Grand i10, the i20 as well. And interestingly, that is the engine on the car I'm driving right now too. So it brings the familiarity home really in many, many manners of speaking. But I'm not going to get into performance per se simply because it's not as if this car is launching in this spec in India. But I will tell you this, that it's the ride and handling, especially the ride quality, that really has me very impressed and would really work well as a key differentiator in the Indian context too, I think. Now, the other quick point to mention, the Rio in the 4th generation was never launched in Korea, its home market. Instead, you have the Rio-based Stonic, the crosshatch that Korea got as the sole offering. But you know what? Both of them selling side by side could be a great business case for India. The i20 also has a very European character on the road, a bit of a USP on this 2nd generation car. The facelift retains that character and only claims to offer more by way of acceleration and efficiency. The Rio, with a similar power plant, should be able to match that offering almost to the T. So sportier ride and handling may have me impressed, but that's because this car is European spec. But like I said, that kind of spec could do wonders for creating a new paradigm in this market too. And that is why it is my belief that even though Kia plans to begin its India innings with a compact SUV, planning to quickly also enter the premium hatch space would also be very logical. The Rio has the goods to make that pitch, in my opinion. Now the question is, do you agree? And does Kia?